Hello and welcome to this channel. My name is Janet. I'm working through the King James's Bible. Today I am in the Book of Kings, the second book, and we're just starting today, so we're doing chapters 1, 2 and 3. So let's get started. So as we ended the Book of Kings 1, we learned that King Ahab, which was one of the most wickedest, evilest kings, is now dead. He's died and his son has taken over. So in this chapter, chapter 1, it starts, because his reign has ended, the Moabs are now starting a rebellion against the Israelites. Now the new king of Israel, his name is Ahaziah, and we learn that he's had a fall through the lattice of his roof and he's injured. And he's wanting to know, am I going to recover from this or what's going to happen? So he goes to his false god, which is Baal Zebub, and he sends some messengers to go to him to ask what will be, what will be of his faith? What's going to happen to him? Is he going to recover? So off his messengers go to this fake god statue to ask these questions. So the Lord gets the prophet Elijah to go to these messengers and speak to them and say, is it because he does not believe that there is a Lord of Israel that he has to ask this God these questions? And because of this, he is now going to die. So he leaves that with the messengers and they take that back with them to the king. And he asks, who told you this? And they describe what he looked like and he knows exactly who it is. It's like, it's Elijah the prophet, right? I'm going to get my captain. So he gets a captain and 50 of his men and he sets them out to go and get Elijah. Now Elijah at this point is on a hill and they say, shout up, man of God, come down, the king orders it. And Elijah says, if I am a man of God, then may the heavens open and fire burn down and consume you all. And that is exactly what happens. This fire comes out and it consumes all of the 50 men, including the captain. So King Ahaziah hears about this and he sends out a second group of 50 men with one captain, and they go up and they shout to Elijah, come down quickly, the king orders it. And again Elijah says, if I am a man of God, may the heavens open and fire come down and consume you all. And it does again. Fire comes down again and consumes all of these 50 men and his captain once more. So King Ahaziah sends another group, a third group of 50 men with one captain. Now these men, obviously they've heard of the first two and they humble themselves. Well, the captain does. He goes forward to Elijah, he meets him at the hill and he drops to his knees and he says, please, will you see our lives as precious? Will you come with me to the king? Do not forsake us like the other men that you have burned by fire. And so Elijah listens to God and he says, go with them. Do not be afraid, just go. So Elijah comes down from the hill and he goes to the king with them. Then Elijah meets with the king and he relays the message exactly as he said it to the messengers. Why is it that you've got to go to a God? Is it because you believe there isn't a God of Israel? And because of this, you will surely die. And shortly after this, as Elijah has prophesied, Ahaziah the king dies. And because he didn't have a son, it's his brother who takes over the reign, and his name is Jehoram. And that closes chapter 1. Now as we open chapter 2, we learn that Elijah is going to be taken up in a whirlwind by God. So he's leaving soon and his successor Elisha will be taking over. So they get together and he goes with him to Gilgal first. Now when they get to Gilgal, Elijah says to him, you stay here because I've got to go to Bethel now. But Elisha won't leave his side. It's like, no, I am your servant, I'm coming with you. So the two of them go to Bethel. Now in Bethel, the prophets there come to Elisha and say, do you know he's going to be leaving you soon? And he says, yes, I know. Then Elijah is going to go on to Jericho and he says to Elisha again, you stay here, I'm going to Jericho. But again, Elisha won't leave his side, so the two of them go to Jericho. And the Jericho prophets there again say to him, do you know that he's going to be leaving you soon? And he says, yes, I know. Then Elijah again, he says to him, you stay in Jericho, I'm going to Jordan. And again, Elisha goes with him to the Jordan River, and they're stood there, and these 50 prophets in Jericho are watching them from a distance. Then Elijah, while they're at this riverbank, he puts his hand down and he divides the water, so he's able to cross it with Elisha. And as they're walking through it, he's saying to Elisha, "What do you want me to leave for you?" And Elisha asks for a portion of his spirit. And Elijah says, "This is a hard thing, so if you see me when I'm gone, then so it is. But if you don't, then so it is too." So there's no guarantee he's going to get this, but he's sort of making that intention that he will try for him. Then a very dramatic scene happens. And as the two are walking, these chariots of fire come towards them and separate the two of them. And Elijah is taken up by this whirlwind, up by God, and up, he's gone completely. And his mantle drops to the ground, and Elisha picks it up, seeing and having witnessed all of this. He's like, "Oh my Lord." So Elisha then rips his clothes into two pieces. He takes the mantle and he goes towards the river banks of Jordan. And then he takes the mantle and he touches the water with it, and he asks out to the Lord, "Where is my God Elijah?" And the water divides for him, and he crosses the river Jordan. And the prophets on the other side that had been looking see this taking place, and they're like, "The spirit of Elijah is over you." And they bow towards this new prophet, Elisha, who has taken the place of Elijah. Now, once they get together, these prophets with Elisha, they say to him, "Can we go and search for Elijah? His body must have been like thrown on a hill somewhere. We'll go and find him." And Elisha says, no, don't go. But they keep going on. They want to go and find him. They want to search for him. So in the end, he says, "Okay, go." So they go over the river Jordan and they search and search for him. And over 3 days, they don't find his body anywhere. So they come back. And he said, "I told you not to go." Then these prophets say to him, "Jericho, do you see the water is bad? It's like dirty and barren. There's not much of it." So Elisha gets them to bring him a bowl and some salt, and he throws that into the water, and it cleanses the water so that the water is healed and there is water to make the land abundant. Then Elisha journeys to Bethel, and on the way he meets some youths who start being very aggressive and chanting and saying awful things to him. They say things like, "Go up, you bald man! Go up, you bald man!" So he curses them via God. And 2 female bears come out of the woods and maul 42 of the youths. Then Elisha goes on his way from Bethel to Mount Carmel. Then from there he returns to his homeland Samaria. And this closes chapter 2. So we open up chapter 3 with Jehoram, which was King Ahab's son, who is now reigning over the 10 tribes of Israel. He is king of Israel. And this happened in the 18th year that Jehoshaphat, who was ruling over the other 2 tribes of Israel. It was his 18th year, and it says that Jehoram ruled for 12 years. Now we learn that he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, but he wasn't as bad as his mother and father, because he got rid of the Baal false gods, but he kept those 2 calves, those 2 oxen. One was in Dan and one was in Bethel. He keeps those because that was kind of like a wager to keep the Israelites from going from him towards the other Israelite king. He thought, we'll keep those in place. They worship that and they'll keep them strong towards me. So it was more of a political move than it was an actual religious move. Now we learn that Mesha, who is the king of Moab, he had to, while King Ahab was alive, he had to pay him 100,000 lambs and also wool from 100,000 rams. And so he doesn't want to pay this anymore now that there's a new king. So he starts this attack against King Jehoram. So King Jehoram gets an army together, ready to attack back. And he also goes to the other king of Israel, King Jehoshaphat, and he asks him, "Will you join me? Because this is what Moab's doing." And he's like, "Yes, we will join you." So they unite to go and fight the battle. And they go towards the wilderness of Edom. There we find that the king of Edom joins them, so we've got the 3 kings, and in this wilderness we learn that 7 days they've had no water, and they've got nothing to drink, and nor for themselves or their animals. So King Jehoram of the 10 tribes of Israel says, "Oh Lord, this means, that the Lord is going to deliver us into the hands of the Moabites." But Jehoshaphat, he wants to know this for sure, so he asks to speak to a prophet. And does anybody know of a prophet, they ask amongst them? And his servants say, there is Elisha. He's a great prophet that they know of. And so the 3 kings get together and they go to where Elisha is. Now when they arrive at the prophet Elisha, he asks them, "What can I do for you?" And they tell him they believe that the Lord is going to deliver them into the hands of the Moabites, and they want a surety what's going to really happen. Now, Elisha doesn't really want to talk to these kings because, for one, Jeroham is such an evil going against the Lord, and he's all about the Lord and following the Lord, whereas Jehoshaphat, he is more following the Lord, so he does it for him. And he calls a musician forward because he needs that musical connection so he can get the calmness to connect to the Lord, and that's what he does. Then he prophesies. He says the land has ditches with water in it that they will find, and it will be enough for them to drink, for themselves and for their animals. Then the Lord is going to deliver the Moabites into their hands. And when they get over there, they've got to destroy the fortified cities, they've got to cut down all of the trees, they've got to stop all of the spring waters, and then they've got to put stones on all of the good land to ruin everything. That is what is being asked of them. So the kings make a grain offering to the Lord, and all of a sudden this water comes down and goes all out towards the desert of Edom, and it fills these ditches with water, just as the Lord said. So they set out to attack. They go back out to the wilderness, and the Moabites on the other side, who are ready with their army to attack, they see this water and the sun is shining on it and it looks like blood. So they think that the Israelites have killed themselves. So they go down towards it. They think they've got a victory. They go down and suddenly they're there, and then there's this attack happens. And so the Israelites then broach after them, go to their cities, and they start knocking down all the fortified cities. They start chopping down all the trees, and they put stones on the good land, and they stop the springs. Now, seeing this battle is getting really fierce, the king of Moab, he gets 700 of his men together, and they try to go directly for one of the kings, King Edom. But it fails. He doesn't get there. So he's getting desperate now. So he offers up his son as a burnt sacrifice. And this desperation, because he worships the Baal god and they're all about child sacrifice, then the 3 kings see this as wow, he has really sort of defeated, so they decide to retreat and come away because they feel they've been victorious enough, and so the battle ends. And they return home, and this closes our chapter 3 for today. And we will be working through more chapters within the Book of Kings 2 in the upcoming videos, so hope to see you there soon. Thanks for being here. Take care now. Bye.